order, please roll call.
Candelas? Here. Duan? Foley?
Here.
Kamei? Here. Cohen?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we don't have a meeting next week. It's President's Day, so we will skip ahead to the meeting on February 25th to review the agenda for the first time. We have morning session at 9:30 and regular session at 1:30. Consent starts on page 5 and ends on page 6. For section 3, we have the focus area semi-annual status report. We have the PG&E cooperative agreement and the annual Measure T report. Section 5, our Vision Zero action plan. Section 6, our power rates. Public hearing, I think. Section 8, the Post Street Pedestrian Mall and the downtown digital signage on city-owned property. And we have 2 land use consent, which would be, one's deferred. So we have 1 land use consent item and another regular land use item. Both of those, I assume, will be heard at the end of the agenda. They're not noticed for earlier. Are we going to notice the land use consent to be right after regular consent, or just do that all at the end? I guess we'll find out. We'll see for next week how we want to set that one up. All right. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
All right. Any comments from the committee?
Move approval. Second.
I know that Councilmember Candelas, you wanted to ask a question about
I
one of the items.
I did, and I just wanted to ask this question to staff. In the words of former Vice Mayor Chappie Jones, did we, assess for load balance on this agenda with regards to the following weeks and subsequent agendas, just for items? And I'm just noticing a couple items, especially the digital signage on city-owned property, potentially the power mix and rates, and then the cooperation agreement between PG&E may attract a lot of public comment and call for, an extensive public input conversation.
Yes, I appreciate the question. There was extensively more on February 25th, and we load balanced and pushed things out as much as we could. So what's on the 25th right now is some fairly significant analysis by staff and the city manager to keep what's on the 25th to 5th and have those other items where they are in time.
On the following week, we'll
Correct.
have next rules meeting to be able to assess the following week's agenda and assess that a little bit closer, because we don't have the following agenda to be able to
fair enough. You don't have the evidence of that load balancing, but the load balancing was done, and we certainly can revisit that next week.
Thank you.
There's no anticipation at this point that the March 4th meeting is somehow much shorter than the 25th of February, though, based on what you're expecting, right?
That is correct. We moved a number of things from February 25th to March 4th, and when we do the load balancing, we also look at deadlines and contractual deadlines and legal deadlines and other things. But again, always open to having that discussion. So when we see the 4th, happy to take the conversation up next week.
Thank you, Dolan. I would have asked Leland the same question.
I'm trying hard.
Go ahead.
Just to add some perspective, we're heading into budget season, and it feels like there's always a lot going on, longer meetings, and hopefully we are doing the load balance. I have a question actually about the power mix and rates. It seems that this is something we see on a regular basis, and unless there's anything different about this one, would it be appropriate to add it to consent and then have a council member pull it off if they have questions about it?
Yeah, I'll certainly take that back to Lori and have that discussion and see if that's possible.
I do think that they've sent an email out and they've sent communication to all the customers about this being the meeting where it will be discussed. We usually just give an opportunity for the public to hear the item that, how we're going to be changing rates. So I don't know whether there's probably something problematic about putting it on consent, given that it's kind of a notice to the annual rate changes potentially for San Jose Clean Energy.
Yeah, I
But
appreciate
we-
the
But
comment.
it's worth, I mean, it's worth considering anything we can do that, but.
Yeah,
I sus- yeah. I
pulled
understood
out
the
that one,
request.
but
Yeah.
any other items that we might be able to put into consent, although I would not add Vision Zero. We are going to have people here for Vision Zero as well.
Yeah, I can't, I'm the only one that would strike out to me, maybe even the Post Street one, I mean, could be on consent, but I mean,
No, it's not.
oh, it does say
Yeah,
that, it
does
says
say
public
conduct a
hearing.
public
Yeah,
hearing,
yeah, so I guess you can't.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
thank
we'll
you.
just
Well, we'll see how it
keep it for the
goes.
long haul and hope that dinner is ordered. Just,
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote. All right, the motion carries 5-0. We have two items on our consent agenda today. Are there any public comment
No
submitted
public
for
comment.
it? Okay, we have a motion to accept consent? Okay, that's a motion and a second. Motion from Duan, second from Candelas. We're voting. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we have two items on our section C. First is a public records appeal for Thomas McInnes. We're going to start with our staff presentation. I don't know that the appellant is here with us today, so we will just ask questions after the presentation.
Chair, committee members, Sarah Sarate, Director of the Office of Administration, Policy and Intergovernmental Relations, and I'm going to hand it off to our Open Government Manager to provide some background from her perspective.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Jessica Lowry, and I am the Open Government Manager for the City of San Jose. The history of the appeal before you is set forth in the administration's memo. The appeal before you involves releasing body-worn camera footage and a California Highway Patrol, or CHP, form. Both are in possession of the San Jose Police Department. The police withheld both as records of investigation. Additionally, the CHP form was withheld pursuant to the California courts concluding it's exempt from disclosure. On appeal to the Open Government Manager, the records remained withheld. Under the Public Records Act, records of investigation or investigatory files compiled by a local police agency may be withheld under California Code Section 7923.600. Notwithstanding this PRA exemption, certain categories of information, investigatory files, must be disclosed to specific individuals if the records relate to specified crimes as named under California Government Code 7923.605. These crimes are limited to arson, burglary, fire, explosion, larceny, robbery, carjacking, vandalism, and vehicle threat, or as a crime defined by Section 13591B. If one of these qualifying crimes had occurred, then certain information must be disclosed to specified parties, including but not limited to an insurance carrier against whom a claim has been made or might be made. The incident which gave rise to this PRA was logged by the police department as a parking violation. Parking violation is not one of these qualifying crimes which would require the police to disclose the material. As such, they may remain withheld. Under the Public Record Act, certain records may also not be released if otherwise exempt under state or federal law. In this instance, the CHP form is not only an investigatory file, but is a record that cannot be disclosed per state court decision. In County of Los Angeles versus Superior Court, the Second District Court of Appeal held that because these CHP 180 forms contain personal information originating from records possessed by the DMV, they remain protected from disclosure as being exempt under state law. Records of the DMV themselves are regulated under Division 2, Chapter 1, Article 3 of California Vehicle Code, specifically Sections 1808.21, 1808.22, and 1808.23, of the California Vehicle Code particularly discuss the handling of information housed in certain DMV records, including the CHP Form 180. The statutory scheme makes clear that the sensitive information housed in these records may only be accessed by certain individuals, including law enforcement, tow vendors, insurance carriers, and others. And such access to these parties does not constitute a waiver of the information. The requester is not one of these authorized parties. Finally, in the specified circumstances wherein this information may be released, the statutes make it clear that the Department of Motor Vehicles is the department that discloses them. The fact that a local law enforcement agency, including our police department, has access to the data does not mean that we can, in turn, disclose the data to other parties. The administration's recommendation is that you affirm the denial of this second appeal. And does anybody have any questions?
All right, we'll get to that. If there's any public comment first, we'll go there, but
No public
no
comment.
public comment. Okay, questions from the committee?
Move to deny the appeal.
Second.
All right, just one quick question. So if the insurance company or the individual wants the form, they can go to the DMV and ask for it from them? Is that the way this works?
So the statutory schemes relevant to this particular CHP 180 form makes clear that only the department is authorized to release the forms. Unfortunately, of course, it doesn't specifically delineate a procedure for an insurance carrier or other qualified parties to do that and to request that from the department, but it does make clear that, our local law enforcement or us as a city agency is not to initiate that process.
Okay, and then just the other question is, they're requesting body-worn camera footage. Would such footage even exist in a case like this?
Thanks for the question, Councilmember. Paul Hamblin, Lieutenant with the Police Department. Yeah, it exists because per policy, our officers are turning on their cameras anytime they're doing any kind of enforcement, anytime they're meeting with members of the public or attached to a call for service.
Okay. Thank you. I guess there's a motion and a second. Any other questions or? All right, let's move to the vote then. All right, that motion to deny the appeal carries 5-0. Thank you so much for being here and helping us understand the process. All right, the last item on the agenda today is a memo authored by Councilmember Ortiz, myself, and Councilmember Candelas, a request for discussion of the permit parking policy in transit corridors and areas of growth. I'll turn to my colleague if he wants to say anything brief about it before we move to discussion, or we can just answer questions.
No, I just want to thank Councilmember Ortiz for engaging in this conversation with the chair to be able to, essentially ask the administration to provide us more information regarding something I've heard numerous times from residents, and that is, with regards to permitted parking outside of the urban core, and just an exploration and conversation on that would be helpful and beneficial for me and also for residents in my district.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with public comment on this item. Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay. Looks like Councilmember Foley is requesting to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, formally. Just a question. We often get asked about permitted parking in all areas of our district, and I know D1 has some permitted parking, don't you? So my question is, or what I'd like to see included in this info memo is something related to cost recovery, because there is a cost with implementing this type of parking. What would the cost recovery method be, and is that a possibility? So I wonder if the info memo could include that.
Thanks, Councilmember. I have been helping coordinate this myself personally in my other role as leader of the Transportation Aviation CSA. And yes, we will incorporate that information into the info memo. And to help the conversation, there is no workload analysis required. We will green light the memo if the council member approves.
Great.
If the Rules Committee approves.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Kamei.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is something that has been requested from many residents in areas where they're highly impacted in terms of parking. I think that as we start thinking about, our other policies as well, not requiring parking, and I could understand in transit corridors you probably don't need as much, but not requiring it at all also impacts these areas. And so, I think that having a full discussion as well would be helpful, because what happens is that once you have these restricted parking areas, at least this is what I have found in my district, is that it pushes the need for parking in other areas, right? So as things start to develop and we require, limited or no parking, then the problem really exacerbates, because we haven't caught up to having transit that is, at a point where it would be easy to say, oh, guess what? You don't need a car. And so I think that having a good sort of holistic discussion would be helpful in terms of understanding cost recovery, but understanding how other policies also impact this issue.
Yes, we plan to make sure the info memo is fairly robust, because we have done some and observed some unintended consequences with some of our policies around parking. So we want to make sure that we have a robust info memo, and that would be the first step. And then council members can take the next step, which would be potentially up to a MBA on the topic.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, and thanks, Dolan, for helping us with this one. I don't think we heard a motion yet, so go ahead and move it.
I'll move our item for consideration. Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote. Okay, motion carries 5-0. Great. We are on to open forum.
No public comment?
All right, we are adjourned at 2:17 p.m. Thank you.
Hey, there we go.